Good day, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Military and Foreign Affairs Network. I am your host, the voice of reason. Today, we are continuing our ongoing coverage of the civil war taking place inside of the former state of Ethiopia. And while we continue to call it a civil war, it is also a war between a de facto independent region of the former state of Ethiopia, Tigray, and an external invasion force conducted by the despotic regime of Eritrea. And, some people ask why I call Eritrea the despotic regime of Eritrea. Well, that's what it is. It is a despotic regime with a dictator, Sayas Afwerki, who's been in power for probably over 30 years now. He's probably one of the longest running dictators on the planet. And as I've talked about before, in terms of the harshness of the regime, it very much mirrors what you see occur inside of North Korea. But the Eritrean Army has invaded the Tigray region to the south here. It has attacked along three access points, possibly four. You have the what I would call the Shiraro and Shire front in this locale. You have the Rama front just north of Adwa, and then you have activity, a operation being conducted north of Adigrat near Zalambasa in this area. But the only success that the Eritrean army has had thus far was in the Shiaro area of operations. And right now we don't know if the Eritrean army is still in Shiraro. It's possible. There is fighting continuing in that area. But more importantly, the Eritrean army has suffered a fairly significant defeat near Adidaro, and that is located here. This is north along the main route towards Shire. Shire would be the gateway to some of the other major cities in the northern Tigray region. After Shire, you would have major towns such as Axum, Adwa, and again Adigrat further to the east. So this invasion route to secure a route down the B30, this west to east advance would have been is very, very crucial for both the Abiy loyalist forces who are supporting the Eritrean army and the Eritrean army itself. But we do know the Eritrean army had secured at one point, had pushed into Adidaro. Again, this is north of Shire. And then met very, very stiff resistance from the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And we don't know precisely if the Tigrayan Defense Forces vacated the town entirely or continued to resist in some sections, and the Eritrean army was just controlling the major route in and out of town. But we now know that after some fairly significant counterattacks, the Tigrayan Defense Forces have fully liberated and secured Adidaro and pushed the Eritrean army well northwest of Adidaro. We also know that within the last 24 hours, the Eritrean Air Force, possibly the Abiy loyalist Air Force of the former state of Ethiopia, has conducted direct airstrikes against Adidaro. These were terror strikes in which dumb bombs have been dropped on the city's civilian population or the city's civilian population who have not yet vacated the city. But it would appear that under the auspice of revenge, that the Eritrean army, the Abiy loyalist Air Force, has bombarded Adidaro from the air. And again, in all probability, that is because they were defeated in battle in Adidaro and driven north of Adidaro. if you look at the environment, right, that the Eritrean army is fighting in, this is very sparse, very rugged terrain, and the Tigrayan Defense Forces have been very much prepared for the eventuality that the Eritrean army would re-enter the Tigray region. And the Tigrayan Defense Forces have launched operations to destroy and degrade the logistical capabilities of the Eritrean army as it moved deeper and deeper into Tigray. The Eritrean army is really right now stuck to some of the main roads leading into the Tigray region, and then especially what happened here near Adidaro is while the Eritrean army was eventually successful in establishing a route into and out of the city as it looked to advance further south and eventually looked to take control of Shire, which was a very, very important goal for the Eritrean military, and it wasn't able to do that. But this whole time, the Tigrayan Defense Forces have been able to harry the logistical route into the Tigray region and the main Eritrean force construct that was deployed near Adi Doro. But again, we do understand the Eritrean military has been pushed out of Adidaro to the northwest of Adidaro. It looks like we could be seeing an operation or renewed operations towards Shiraro. We're still saying that city is contested. We believe there are still Tigrayan Defense Forces in the city, still resisting against the Eritrean and Abiy loyalist forces in Shiraro. But right now, this is really the only area where the Eritrean military and the Abiy loyalist military have had any sort of success in terms of moving in a fairly significant distance into the Tigray region. Up here near Rama and Zalambasa, north of Mekelle, totally different story. This area here and here. They have just not, meaning they, the Eritrean military, has just not been able to advance into the Tigray region given the amount of very tenacious resistance that we have been seeing. Probably the reason, again, as I talked about this before, that Shiraro was taken and they were able to initially threaten Shire is because of the flatness of the terrain. And the Eritrean army obviously possesses more tanks, armored fighting vehicles, and motorization, and lots of heavy artillery than that of the Tigrayan Defense Forces. And that is probably why we have seen some limited success, again, due to the flatness of the terrain. But even then, the preparation for defensive operations and the multiple belts of defensive lines and redoubts that the Tigrayan Defense Forces have established along the route from the Eritrean border areas into Tigray and then specifically leading down to Adidaro has really caused the Eritrean military some really significant challenges. But that's where it sets for today in terms of what is happening in the north. We continue to hear about fighting near Abala and Berhale. Again, no reports of advance by the Eritrean military. They are stuck as they try to move forward against the Tigrayan Defense Forces, and especially in some of these very, very hilly areas just to the west of Abala. And unlike the prior invasion back in the late 2020, the Tigrayan Defense Forces, the Tigray region, is fully mobilized. Instead of 9,000 personnel, we are seeing 200 to 250,000 personnel in very well prepared defensive areas that have been constructed and prepared by the Tigrayan Defense Forces. There continues to be fighting west and south of Kobo near Weldia, and that is mainly between, right now, from what we hear, Tigrayan Defense Forces, and the Abiy loyalist Amhara regional paramilitary forces. We understand that the Abiy loyalist forces, especially near Kobo and the Zobel mountain range in this area, really got their teeth kicked in and suffered thousands and thousands of casualties, thousands of prisoners of war, and they eventually fled south. The only thing that was really keeping the Tigrayan Defense Forces from moving into the areas of Weldia, Lalibela, Sokoto, has been some of these regional Amhara paramilitary forces that have decided to stand and fight. But the ENDF, the Ethiopian National Defense Forces of the former state of Ethiopia, aka the Abiy Loyalist Forces of the regular army that is loyal to Abiy Ahmed, really have proven themselves incompetent on the battlefield. And it's interesting to see just the really the lack of preparation and the lack of the abilities of the commanders, battalion commanders, brigade commanders, division commanders of the Abiy loyalist forces to conduct operations. Obviously, as we talked about before, the Abiy loyalist forces really took a lot of damage in the earlier campaigns back in late 2020, but mainly 2021. And you can clearly see that that force has not repaired itself and reconstituted in a way in which it could be successful. Compounding that, you still have the Oromo Liberation Army in this fight. And much of Western Oromia is now controlled by the Oromo Liberation Army and continue to harry and harass the Abiy loyalist forces, especially in Western Oromia. It's in this area to the west of the capital, Addis Ababa, also known as Finfine. Could the capital at some point be renamed Finfine if the Oromo Liberation Army is eventually successful in some of its endeavors? We'll have to see how that pans out. But we do know large chunks of Western Oromia, outside of some of the major towns and cities, are fully under the control of the Oromo Liberation Army right now, and it's been a thorn in the side of the Abiy loyalist forces as this this multifaceted civil war continues to take place, all brought upon by the glorious leadership of the warlord Abiy Ahmed. And I say that obviously being facetious because it has been a utter catastrophe in leadership in terms of his reign of power. And I would have to imagine that many folks inside the former state of Ethiopia are now having buyer's remorse in terms of Abiy Ahmed as the so-called prime minister of the former state of Ethiopia. But that's where it sets for today. We will continue to monitor, report, and bring you more content. And as always, we truly appreciate your viewership, and we will have more content coming very, very soon. And as always, have a good day.